Hi, my name is Sandra from IPv4 Market Group. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today at World Hosting Days in Reuss, Germany. Going to my first slide, it's a table of contents and it covers the topics that I'm going to go through with you today. These topics are the factors affecting IPv4 pricing, the reduced supply in the marketplace of IPv4, the long-term IPv4 price view, the price trends that IPv4 Market Group has seen to date in the marketplace, the transfer activity conducted by IPv4 Market Group in the RIPE region, and then some predictions for the future. Moving to my second slide, I'm going to talk about the factors that affect pricing. So the first factor that affects pricing is the RIPE Inter-RIR transfer market. This is a new policy that was implemented last September by the RIPE NCC. And what has happened since the implementation of this policy is that we've seen an equalization of prices across all of the regions, roughly speaking. The prices have come together a lot more than they used to be. The second factor is IPv6 deployment. We have not really seen an impact from IPv6 deployment. In other words, in the long term, we expect IPv6 to reduce the demand for IPv4, but this hasn't really happened yet, and we're still seeing that IPv6 hasn't been implemented widespread in the marketplace, and therefore there's no impact.
Use of carrier-grade NAT, so that's a technology that's used to stretch the use of IPv4 across networks, and other technologies can also be used. And what we're seeing is that they enable IPv4 to be stretched, and therefore they keep the demand a little bit lower than it would otherwise be, and they cause prices to be a little bit reduced by stretching demand. Supply of IPv4, so the availability of more IPv4 addresses in RIPE region keeps the supply higher. And what we see also is that as more what we call /8s come to the market from North America, that also increases supply. And as you would think, more supply means lower prices. Demand for IPv4, cloud applications, telcos, those types of things pull on the supply and bring the increase in prices. And what I'm going to show you in the slides that follow is how each of these factors are affecting price today. So first of all, it's interesting to note that ARIN ran out of IPs in the last year. And you can see what happened. All of a sudden there was a spike in demand in the ARIN region. That's a huge spike between 2014 and 2015. And what that has done is really pull on demand, and therefore we're seeing a price increase. And I'm going to show you that price increase very shortly. So I have a theory built around what will ultimately happen to prices. Take a look at each of the, I don't know if you can distinguish on the slide with the lighting in the room, but there were 4 bullets here that are green. The bullet that says lots of IPv4 available, then you see the ARIN runout happening, the RIPE Inter-RIR transfer happening, /8s coming to market, so that means a big supply of IPv4 coming to market, causing a temporary decrease in price. And then the best time for the seller is when prices maximize, and then as IPv6 comes to the market, we see the decrease in price. From the seller's perspective, the ideal window of opportunity to sell is the green area, and then prices fall off as IPv6 becomes dominant. And as somebody said to me earlier today when they came to our booth, they said, you know, ultimately IPv6 will push the price to 0. I think that's way out in the future. The price curve timeline is probably on the order of 5 to 10 years, and some have estimated it could be as much as 20. Now, the actual price trends, it's most useful to look at one block, and the most common block we see traded is the /16, which is approximately 65,000 IP addresses. So you can see back in 2011, the price started when the market started at $11.25. And then, over time, as I think sellers became a little bit desperate, they thought, oh, why hasn't my IP block sold? And they reached a low about a year ago of $5 an IP for a /16, and now we've seen prices recline back to around the $7 to $8 mark. $7 in the ARIN region, $8 in the RIPE region, and we're seeing this steady climb, as you can see on the arrow tip. And you can also see that the volume is a little bit higher now. We're seeing more transfers. Now, I'll state that these are the transfers actually done by my company. There are more transfers happening in the market. So these are all observations of our data. Now, this data is taken from the actual RIPE registry. And the stuff in the boxes is what I'm most interested in, because these are the larger transactions. So anything from a /20, which is 4,000 IPs, through to a /14, which is approximately, that would be 250,000 IPs. That's a significant number of IPs. And you can see that the number of transfers per block size decreases as you get into the larger block sizes, but the number of IPs actually transferred increases significantly. And the sweet spot is the /16, where the most IPs are transferred. And then the countries in RIPE region where the IPs are transferring. Iran and Saudi Arabia in the Middle East are very large transfers of IPs. And then Russia and the UK, perhaps surprisingly, is a big transfer of IPs. And then you can see so on down the list, with Germany 8 or so down the list at 4.5% of the IPs transferred. And then if you look at the volume spike, it spiked to the highest point in November of 14, and then it's tripled off since then. And I think this is a supply factor happening here, where there just isn't the supply available for continued transferring at the volume that we were seeing earlier. So predictions for the future, I have 3. We're not at the top of the price curve. Prices will continue to increase. /8s from the US, because that's where most of them are. There are a couple in the UK that we're working with, but mostly in the US, will continue to come to market, and that will help to keep prices down somewhat. And then there is a shortage of IPs in the RIPE region, and that will be filled from other regions for a while. But ultimately, what's going to cause the transition to IPv6 is the shortage of IPv4, and that's going to really push the deployment of IPv6. And am I allowed to take questions, or is that it?
Yes, you are allowed.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I'd be glad to take them.
You know, I have a question.
Okay.
Why we just don't have an IPv5? That moment, I mean.
Good question. There was an IPv5, but it was very poorly written as a protocol, and it failed, so it doesn't really work.
So the 6 is a lucky number.
The 6 is a working protocol that actually does something.
Okay. Actually, anybody? Some questions? No? If you want to add something, you can do it.
No, I'm finished, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sarah Brown, President IPv4. Thank you for inviting us.